Good evening. Tonight I'd like to ask everyone watching this video to guess how many states over half of the United States population lives in. Is it 15, 20, maybe 25 states, half of the United States population, half the states? No, it actually doesn't work out that way. According to the 2018 U.S. Census Bureau, over 50% of the United States population lives in 9 states. I think this goes to show that the population is not spread out evenly across the country and across the different states, even though there's systems of our government that are set up to give states equal representation regardless of population. I think this is fundamentally flawed and is leading to a lot of issues that our country is facing. I currently live in California. I'm grown up in California, and I feel like our state isn't accurately represented in the federal government and doesn't get the weight in the government that it deserves. I identified 3 specific aspects of our government that I believe need reform, and that's in the United States Senate, our electoral college, and the process that we use to amend the United States Constitution. I think when discussing underrepresentation of highly populated states, I think we must start at the Senate. The United States Senate, according to Article 1 of the United States Constitution, gives every state 2 senators in 2 votes in the United States Senate, regardless of population. So that means we reflect back to 9 states having over 50% of the United States population. That means that 50% of the population only gets 18% representation in the United States Senate. And this is only getting worse. According to the Weldon Cooper Center for Public Service, University of Virginia in 2018, they released that by 2040, 70% of the United States will live in only 16 states, giving 70% of the United States 32% representation in the Senate, which just seems to be unmanageable long term. That's not going to be an equal spread of the representation of the United States citizen. It's going to lead to rulings that aren't going to be representative of what all Americans potentially want. And I think these problems are showing now when you look at Congress's approval rating. Congress has an approval rating of 19%, according to a Gallup poll that was taken back in October. So it's very, very low. And when we look at all the different things the Senate does, it's so consequential, like the impeachment hearings that occurred of President Donald Trump, where no witnesses were called to testify. I think if we would have had better representation in the Senate, we would have seen a different trial, as well as the Supreme Court nominations. The previous 4, where we had one nomination was blocked completely and the other one's passed through fine. It would have been interesting to see what a better representation of California and the larger populated states would have had on the outcome of those things. So now the other aspect that we should amend and change in the U.S. is the electoral college, the process that we use to elect the president. Previously, there's been 5 presidents who have won the electoral college but lost the popular vote. But the last 2 Republican presidents have both done that, which shows a trend that's starting within the way power is divided up among the different political parties. David Wise, who writes in the Baltimore Sun, noted that a Wyoming voter has 3.6 more impact on the election than a California voter. And I think when we look at the recent election, Joe Biden received 11 million votes in California, where in 2016, Hillary Clinton received 8.7 million votes. So you see a 2.3 million increase in voters that results in no more electoral college votes, which essentially that increase just evaporates and goes away. And I think those need to register on the political scoreboard and can't be underlooked. But now to fix these problems, we have to amend our Constitution, and it's seen as probably one of the hardest things to do in our government, almost downright impossible. It takes 3/4 of the states to ratify a new amendment, and states ratifying amendments that take away their own power, to vote against their own interests, is something that they're not likely to do. There's also been proposals to have the larger states split up into smaller states. but where you have 5 Californias, 5 Texases, you have 4 New Yorks, 4 Floridas, you split all those up. But where does that stop? Do you end up with 20 Nebraskas? Do you end up with 30 Iowas? So when you make a structural change to the United States government, there can be unintended consequences. But ultimately, I think it's going to be the will of the people that's going to win out here, and it's going to take California residents, residents of the higher populated states, standing up and demanding equal representation in our federal government by amending and changing how the representation works in the Senate, how the Electoral College operates, and how we amend our Constitution. I think the United States Constitution is the greatest legislative document ever drafted, and it's created the greatest country ever, the greatest superpower the world has ever known. But it's a victim of its own success now, and it's created a country that it can no longer govern. And there needs to be another iteration of our governing documents, and I think it's going to start with a public movement, a grassroots movement from citizens of the higher populated states demanding more representation. So I encourage everyone to support policies, support candidates who look to bring more representation back